right. It's not right. Oh, it's broken? Oh, wow. Okay. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai Gaur Premanande Haribol. So tonight we're going to talk about something very interesting. It's called Seeing with Equal Vision. There's a verse from the Bhagavad Gita that says, a humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater or outcast. So, seeing with equal vision, that means that we do not see the person based on the body. We see the person based on the soul. Whenever you look at the body of someone, there are many differences between your body, their body, other bodies. But that's not the real person, because the body is not who we really are. How do we know that? Well, the body is always changing. You start out, your first body is microscopic. You need a microscope to see it. And it's transferred from the sperm of the body of the father to the mother. So our first body is microscopic. You can't see it with the raw eye. You'd have to have a microscope to see it. And then that microscopic sperm connects with the ovum of the wife, and from that point on, it begins to grow. All the information, or let's call it in another sense, technology, to build a body with all the complex parts of the body, heart, liver, legs, arms, eyes, nose, everything. All that information is in that microscopic sperm. It is a miracle. And once the sperm connects with the ovum of the wife, it begins to grow. And the whole process is mysterious, and it's a miracle. If you look at the human body, it's very, very complicated. No one's ever been able to replicate the human body. They make sometimes robots, but they don't come really close to what a human body is. They do a lot of things, but they can't do everything. And so we see there's this mystery. We don't really understand much about the material body. We definitely cannot, let's say, replicate it. But yet, if we see the complexity of the human body, we begin to understand that there has to be another controller of the whole process. Who is that other controller? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is controlling our bodies. Right now, many mysterious things happen. We manufacture. The body is like a manufacturing facility. We manufacture blood. We manufacture bone. We manufacture semen. We manufacture so many things in the body. And we don't know how we're doing it. So this mystery points to something very, very, let's say, dramatical. What is that something? There's someone else controlling. We have to come to that conclusion because we're not controlling these things. When we're sleeping, we're not consciously controlling our breathing. We don't know how we're making blood. We don't know how we're growing. All these things are mysteries. All we know is that we can use it. It's just like the internet. Most people don't know how the internet works, but they can do certain things with it. You know, you can send messages, you can read things, and so forth. But you don't really know how it's actually functioning. Actually, it is it's not a mystery, but it is a miracle that you have a wireless means of communication that can go from one part of the world to the other. Is that right? There's no wires involved with the internet. Yeah. So, but when we come to the body and we try and understand it, there are many things we don't understand. It's mysterious how blood is made. No one has ever been able to replicate blood. They can replicate aspects of blood, but not the actual substance completely. And there are other things that we don't understand, like for example, how a baby is formed in the womb of the mother. Nobody understands how it happens. It's another miracle. But yet it's happening right in front of our eyes. We take it for granted, but if you think about it, you'll see that it is a mysterious thing. How a little microscopic sperm that connects with an ovum develops into a complete little baby. How did that happen? That's, the body of the baby has everything: the arms, the legs, the different organs, the eyes, and these are all very complicated things. And the baby breathes and is a living being. So we should ask ourselves certain questions. The first question is, how is this happening? How are these mysterious things happening? Well, obviously somebody else is controlling them. We're not controlling them. That's the beginning of our research into God. When we understand that there are things that we don't understand and are miraculous and are fundamental to our existence, and we don't understand how they're happening. We see it happening, but we don't understand how it's happening, and we can't produce it ourselves. We might be able to produce aspects of it, but not the whole thing. So, this has been explained even from the earliest times. 5,000 years ago, Krishna was speaking to Arjuna. And he explained to Arjuna some of the mysteries that are happening. For example, Arjuna asked so many questions of Krishna, and Krishna answered them. And the fundamental question it was, why am I suffering? Krishna explained that when a person forgets or ignores the relationship with Krishna, they come under the influence of the material nature, or Maya. And Maya puts us in this situation of illusion. Maya means illusion. What is illusion? Believing that I am this body, believing that I am a proprietor, believing that the goal of life is to make a lot of money and then spend it for so-called happiness, believing so many things that are not actually true, believing that we can achieve things that are not possible. Like, for example, it's not possible to live on another planet, but yet Elon Musk is declaring that in another 10 or 20 years there'll be 1 million people living on Mars. This is complete nonsense. It's impossible. It will not happen. They can't even put a living person on the moon. How are they going to put 1 million people on Mars? You know. So here we are today, hearing things that are impossible, but yet they're promising us that it will happen. So this is called hope against hope. You hope about something and it doesn't happen, and then you replace that hope with another hope, and that doesn't happen, and then you replace that hope with another hope, and that doesn't happen. But just to cover their tracks, they always say, we'll be able to do this in the next 50 years. Well, Elon Musk won't be alive 50 years from now. You might, none of us might be alive 50 years from now, so we don't really know what's going to happen. But these are what you call empty promises. Most of science today is making empty promises, and because they haven't made any real, let's say, new things or achieved new breakthroughs, scientific breakthroughs, since electromagnetic force, and so what do? They replace the real science with making declarations that are false, and declarations that they say will happen in the future. So previously, people didn't believe in false narratives. They believed in things that were real. Now, what do I mean by that? That means that they believe that there is God who has all powers. They believe that by worshiping God, they could have a peaceful and happy life. They believe that by praying to God on a regular basis, God would protect them. And in this way, they were able to do achieve wonderful things in ancient times. Like if you go to India or other places, you'll see the ancient architectural wonders. And how did they build those architectural wonders? They had faith in God, and Just touch it. That's okay. That's good. Thank you. So you have the pyramids in Egypt, and you have so many structures in India that proves that in ancient times there was very sophisticated technology, and people were able to do things that we just marvel when we see them today. Can we reproduce the same things? Not really. We might to a certain degree, but not as, let's say, intricate as they did in the past. So why is there, let's say, so much atheism today? And based on the fact that there are so many atheists today, there is a breakdown of morality and a breakdown of happiness in the world today. It's because of false narratives. People today believe that you can be happy by making a lot of money and spending it. They believe you only live once, so you have to enjoy as much as you can in this lifetime. They believe that there's no such thing as an eternal soul. There's just a body. They believe that one can be a consumer of different things and not be responsible if there are consequences of that consumption. So therefore, with so many modern inventions, so much, like for example, you have the electric battery for a car. Now the electric batteries, eventually they don't work anymore, and you're going to have a massive number of them that are going to pollute wherever they put them. They're going to pollute that area seriously. Previously, they were making these atomic bombs. They're still making atomic bombs, but they made a lot of them before, and they're very toxic. So we see that modern inventions create modern problems that are detrimental to the health and well-being of people. The military and industrial complex comes up with more and more lethal weapons that are also highly detrimental for the health of people and the environment. So, and also we have the United Nations. It was supposed to eliminate all wars in the future. Well, they haven't succeeded. There are more and more wars, and they're getting more and more lethal, and there's no actual relief. There's more anxiety than relief. So we have to ask our questions. We have to question, why is this happening? It's happening because people have lost faith in God. People are not teaching their children to believe that there is a God. They don't teach it in schools. In fact, they're not allowed to talk about God in school, you see. So eventually, there's no authority, no spiritual authority that becomes a guiding, let's say, light in a young person's life. There are other authorities, atheistic authorities, materialistic authorities, that are more pertinent in the life of children today than spiritual authorities, unfortunately. So, it's difficult for parents today to raise their children to be spiritually inclined because the educational system is not, especially public schools, are not at all going to support your spiritual convictions. And if you put your kids in private schools, like there's Catholic schools, etc., they get some spiritual instruction there, but it's not completely, let's say, adequate to help these children become genuine lovers of God. So, first of all, let's state what is actually the purpose of human life, because we can't really understand what is the purpose of education without understanding what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to develop love of God through devotion and service and complete surrender to the will of God, and thus attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death and go back to the spiritual world. That is the purpose of life. That's the purpose of human intelligence. It's not to make atom bombs or nuclear bombs. It's not to make tanks and all kinds of weapons. It's to develop love of God. And if you love God, you love all creation of God. And you help others also achieve appreciation and love of God. Therefore, people can be peaceful and happy and do positive things, constructive things, not destructive things. There's a tremendous industry of destruction, but actually it is the opposite of what people want. But yet it's going on very, very, let's say, dramatically right in front of our eyes. We hear about genocide in other parts of the world. We hear about the academic, the drug problems. We hear about a lot of violence going on. And basically, it looks like there is a deterioration of society, not only in the United States, but around the world. What is causing this deterioration of the society? What is causing the fact that there's wars and lethal weapons, that countries are spending hundreds and billions of dollars producing weapons of mass destruction? What is causing this? Well, what's causing it is the fact that love of God is not on the agenda of people. It's not on the agenda of the politicians. It's not on the agenda of teachers and schools. It's not on the agenda even of parents. And because of that, people fall into this trap of self-destructive practices of life. Like, for example, smoking. In every pack of cigarettes, it says, if you smoke, you'll get cancer of the lungs. But yet people keep smoking. Illicit sex. Well, there's a lot of publicity. It says, by having promiscuous sexual partners, you can get sexual diseases, and even some of them lead to death. But yet, no one stops having illicit sex. They keep doing it. And so there are many things that are self-destructive that people are doing today, it's part of the culture in a sense, and yet it's not stopping, it's getting worse. Just like you see drugs. Drugs are coming to this country at a tremendous pace, and there's millions and millions of dollars being spent to bring the drugs in and selling them. How come we can't stop that? Well, not only we can't stop the drugs, because the border on the southern part of this country is open. Anyone can walk in. Right? Like many of you had to go through a lot of trouble to get into this country. You know, you have to have medical. You have to have doctors. Let's say. You have to go to the doctors and get their. And the doctor took blood tests from you and so forth, and you had to pay money and so forth to get a green card or something or to come into this country. Nowadays, there are people just walking across the border, and not, no one's asking any questions. Who are you? What are you? And also, how do we know that's happening? Because there's all kinds of murders going on now around the country of illegal immigrants. People that just walked across the border and they commit all kinds of thievery and murder and so forth. So we see that there is something wrong in the way our politicians are doing things. And because of that, it's making life much more difficult. Is that something new? Well, in a sense, no. There's been problems in America ever since it started. All kinds of problems. All kinds of problems with killing and destroying people's cultures. Like the American Indian culture was almost completely wiped out by the white man in America. The Indians in America, they lived on the basis of having buffaloes. They would follow the buffaloes, and their basic diet was buffalo meat. So what did the United States do? The United States Army wiped out almost all the buffaloes, completely ruined the culture of the American Indians. They were basically nomadic. So to stop them from being nomadic, they killed all the buffaloes, and it changed the whole culture of most Indian tribes in this country. So I'm not advocating, the eating of buffalo, but what I'm saying is that there is an epidemic of false theories. There's an epidemic of violence in this country and even around the world. Whatever America does, other people imitate it. And because of this American culture that we have now, in many ways it's ruining the lives of people. Oftentimes you hear about the very wealthy people who commit suicide because they get caught cheating, or they, for different reasons, money reasons and relation reasons, they commit suicide, etc. So we need to have a new way of looking things. But actually, we have to go back to the old way of looking things. Just like they say, old is gold. So the original culture that was taught or given by Krishna 5,000 years ago to Arjuna was one of self-control, was one of respecting life was one of not having an excess of, let's say, living a minimalist life. Therefore, Krishna instructed Arjuna to only fight to protect the principles of Dharma, not to aggrandize or take over territories of other people. It was to protect the principles of Dharma. So, therefore, Arjuna, by following Krishna's instructions, did not necessarily kill anyone. He only fought to the point where the enemies of Dharma were stopped or eliminated. Now, Dharma means the laws that God has given us to live our life. So basically we have two sets of laws. One is the laws of the government, and the other is the laws of God. Now we have to follow both sets of laws to have a successful life. The successful life is that we're able to live in such a way as to not do any harm to any living entity. That includes the animals, etc. And to develop love of God and to show that love by our service to Krishna, and eventually go back to Godhead. Do you hear anyone besides maybe the devotees? Do you hear anyone talking about that? I don't hear anyone talking about that. I know this one lady talking about being very happy to make as much money as possible and to spend it to have nice things in her life. But she didn't talk anything about God. She was just talking about all the things that she was trying to get to be happy. So that is not real happiness. That is simply a consumer society ethos or way of living. Rather than being a consumer, we should be a lover. So love Krishna, love the members of your family. In other words, love Krishna to learn how to love, and then spread that to others. So how do you love Krishna? Well, you come to the temple and learn how to love Krishna. If you learn to love Krishna, then you learn to share that love with others, and then you have a peaceful, happy life yourself. Oftentimes, I remember, and even in my family, I had a great auntie. She was like my mother's sister, right? So she was a very nice lady, and I loved her because she was so kind and gentle. And she was all, in fact, what she used to do for me, I'm sure they do it in India also, and other places. She would sometimes do a ceremony to chase devils and or curses away from me. So she would get some salt and some water, and then she would start reciting the verses from the Bible, and she would take the salt in her hand and she would wave it around like this, and then say these verses to keep away evil spirits from me. Right. Now, I don't know if any of you do that now. Maybe. Huh? In the past, yeah. That's why I said I don't know if you do it now, but it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. because you're reciting verses of, in the case of my great auntie, was verses from the Bible, but you can do it verses of the Bhagavad Gita also, or some of the scriptures. So this type of protection of children based on spiritual, let's say, spiritual service is a wonderful thing. Like my auntie used to take me to church every Sunday also. But whether we went to church or we didn't go to church, she was always teaching me prayers that I had to say before I went to sleep at night. And there were a lot of them. It took me like 45 minutes of saying them before I could go to sleep. And, I eventually memorized them and got it down to a little less than almost a half an hour. But so she was teaching me to have a God-centered life, because she herself had suffered a lot in life, and she kept her sanity and her, let's say, her desire to live and do good things by praying. She was praying every day. And that influenced my life a lot. If I'm interested in being Krishna conscious today, I do attribute it to a certain degree to my great auntie, because she took me to church every Sunday, and she tried to protect me from evil or forces, and she always was like cooking nice things, and basically just sharing her love and to protect me so as I was growing up. So this is important for kids to have that type of relationship with their parents or grandparents or aunties, etc. It is the passation of real culture from traditional culture to the present age of, or the present generation of kids. It's not something that should be looked down upon or criticized as being old-fashioned. That's a big mistake. It's not old-fashioned, because it's the original culture that has sustained this world for hundreds and millions of years. And therefore, when Srila Prabhupada came to the United States, he came to reestablish the original Krishna conscious culture that had sustained India for so long. And then he did a brilliant thing. Once he had disciples in America, he took them back to India. He called them the white elephants. And by bringing the Americans back to India with shaved heads and dressed with dhotis and chanting Hare Krishna and doing Sankirtan, the Indians were shocked. They said, hey, we're trying to imitate the Americans, and now the Americans are doing what we were supposed to do before. So it was a big shock, and it caused a revolution, even in India. And that was Prabhupada's idea. It was to definitely not only help the Western people, but help the people in India, because they were also, going away from Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma means the rules and regulations given by God, how people should live. So this is what Prabhupada did. He reestablished Sanatan Dharma, and it's practiced, and it's continuing today. And getting stronger and stronger around the world. It's absolutely necessary if we want society to proliferate and be a society that produces good people. You become good by associating with good people, good teachers, good family members, good friends, and you destroy society when uh, the the young people are associating with bad people who have all the bad habits: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, lying, and cheating, and so forth. So we need to have uh, people who give a good example, and we don't need uh, people making fun of people who make good examples. Oftentimes, in some communities in the United States, when someone is doing well academically, they get harassed by other kids in their classes because they're getting good grades and they're doing their homework, etc. And by the way, it's in previous times, especially in India, the brahmanas were responsible for educating kids, and usually they wouldn't have more than maybe 3, 4, 5 disciples, and they would educate them, and most of the time they educated them for free. And of course, they would give some dakshina, but basically it was free, and the children grew up with good moral qualities, and they learned shastric, verses and so forth, and they were taught all the different ceremonies and festivals of Vedic tradition and so forth. And this was a good system. The educational system in India was very good before the British came and took over. They started taking over in 1825 and destroyed the whole thing. And it's almost wiped out completely the spiritual, let's say, the spiritual teaching and to kids in India that mimics what's happened in the United States and Europe. So Srila Prabhupada, he came to America to teach the Americans to be devotees. And once he had establishment in America, he went back to India to teach the people in India to be devotees. Real devotees, not just doing worship for material benefit, but doing worship out of love and devotion for Krishna. So we see there's a difference between worship done for material benefit and worship done to actually please God. Most worship today is done for material benefit. And because of that, if people don't get what they want by that worship, then they give it up and they start looking other ways to get what they want. But real devotees don't care about success or failure. They're concerned about purity of thought, purity of the body, purity of friendship, and so forth. It's not important to make a lot of money and so forth. It's more important to have this purity, especially purity of thought. When a person gives up the desire for meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, and becomes serious about following Sanatana Dharma, their whole life changes. Prabhupada said, if you give up sex, you become very healthy and powerful. But power in terms of self-control and peace of mind. So, sex is necessary for procreation, but if it's given up for sense gratification, that's when you get people who become very healthy, very serious, very peaceful, and spiritually, let's say, enlightened. So this is something that's looked down upon today, unfortunately, but it should be championed, because this is the way. This is the first major step to building a society of happy, healthy, and spiritually inclined people. Sex is necessary for procreation, but it's not meant for having sense gratification. It's meant specifically for procreation. And then you take the responsibility to raise your children properly so that they become devotees and they can be trained to prepare themselves to go back to Godhead. Now, unfortunately, even, let's say, like Christians and Jews and Muslims, they look upon these things in a different way. They eat meat. They have sex for pleasure as well as for having children. They work really hard to make a lot of money and spend it for buying all kinds of things and so forth. So we're not against people making money. Prabhupada said, I've come to America to teach them how to spend their money. And the idea is to spend the money to have a spiritual life, not a material life. So that means that to live a minimalist life and use your wealth to do good to your family members and, of course, to society by spreading Krishna consciousness. So these are ideas that are not actually clearly understood by most people. Most people think they should make as much money as possible and spend it to be as happy and extravagant in your lifestyle. But that is not really what money is for. Everything belongs to Krishna. Therefore, if you use everything in the service of Krishna, then you're not committing any mistake. You're actually used, because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, including our own body. This is the way the gopis think. The gopis, they openly say our bodies belong to Krishna, and we'll do whatever Krishna wants us to do to make him happy. So they'll cook for him, they'll dance for him. In order to make Krishna happy, the gopis know at least, about 6,000 ragas. Ragas are, the tonalities of music. They need to know that many ragas to express the different nuances of love that they want to express for Krishna. So although the gopis are cowherd girls, they don't have PhDs in music. They don't have a lot of material education, but they know how to make Krishna happy by chanting beautiful ragas, by cooking very nicely, by dressing nicely, and by decorating things nicely. So their whole life is to please Krishna. And because of that, they have an idyllic spiritual life. And it transforms the material nature into a spiritual world. And so this is the culture that Prabhupada has brought to America, and is trying, and we're trying to follow that, let's say, way of living. We live to please Krishna, just like the gopis. They live to please Krishna. And if we can succeed in pleasing Krishna, then that is the summum bonum, the real purpose of life. If Krishna is happy by our service, then we're going to be happy. Our family will be happy. Everybody will be happy. Because society will be very peaceful and happy. Now, what kind of happiness are we talking about? The happiness of seeing your children grow up believing in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and following the rules and regulations of spiritual life, or Sanatana Dharma. That will make parents very happy, because now they see how good their children are. I know when my father died, and my brothers completely protected my mother. There was no question of her, being bereft of anything. And until her last breath, my brothers took care of her, and myself also. So that was something, it's not something rare, but it was something nice to see. And then my mother actually appreciated it very much. She never had any anxiety in her life after my father died. So we have to teach our children these type of values based on spiritual, let's say, knowledge. It's not simply maintaining life for happiness, but maintaining life for spiritual expansion, spiritual growth, spiritual depth. So therefore, we should do the following. Think of Krishna, worship Krishna, serve Krishna, surrender to Krishna, love Krishna, and offer everything to Krishna. These are nice things to do. And you can see, obviously, we're doing this in this temple. That's why Radha and Krishna are smiling. Right? You can look at them right now. They're beautiful. And then when you see them smiling, you smile also. It's a beautiful thing to see the deities every day and have darshan, and to chant for them and cook for them and dress them and recite beautiful verses for them. This is the culture of Sanatana Dharma. And Sanatana, of course, means eternal, and Dharma means the instructions Krishna has given us to live by. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there and ask you if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make. The Sanatana Dharma is what we're teaching here. It's the ancient way of life that has sustained life for hundreds and millions of years. So if we want to sustain life today, Jai Shri Krishna Bhagavan Ki Jai. If we want to sustain life today, we should live by the principles of Sanatana Dharma. Hare Krishna. So if anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, you're welcome. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Careful, careful. That doesn't work. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Yeah. So Maharaj, this is a question coming from my observation when I engaged with people outside devotee community, and
outside devotee
community. When we meet with outside devotee community, so one observation was a family that I know. They lost one of their family members to drowning. Drowning, yeah.
In like a swimming pool or something?
Yeah, so the son fell down, and then to protect the son, then the person jumped in. And the second is the wife and husband most of the times fight. This person. These two situations, and third is this person is subject to quite a bit of anger with children. And even after even under these three situations, even after experiencing these three every day, he still feels his life is fine and exposes himself that what is the need for me to go to God? What does it make them to say so much convicted that there is no God, even experiencing all these things? And why they are so much convicted that God doesn't exist, even everything happening around them, not a good way for them?
Well, unfortunately, this is due to the educational system in India that teaches people to be more interested in making money and spending it for sense gratification. India used to be like the place to go for spirituality, but it's changed over time. There is some spirituality still, but there's a lot of materialism now. And because of that, many Hindus have lost their path back to Godhead. And now they're on the path of making money and spending it and enjoying sense gratification. And the number one thing is sex. Prabhupada said, if you give up sex, I mean, you can have sex for having children. There's nothing wrong with that. But having sex for pleasure, it ruins a person's, let's say, morality as well as their peace of mind. And what happens is they become weaker mentally and physically. But if you give up, let's say, extra sex or illicit sex, and only use it for procreation, you become very powerful mentally, physically, and you're able to do very wonderful things that are not hurting anyone else or yourself. Now, someone can say, well, I can't live without sex. That person is sick. You say, why? Because they've become contaminated by the modern culture. Sex is everywhere. You open a television, you read a book, you walk down the street, you look at clothing. Clothing nowadays, women wear clothes that look almost, you can see through, right? So this is a problem. And I had a friend of mine, he told me, it's all God's fault. I said, what do you mean it's all God's? What's God's fault? He said, but he made women. So I said, look, that's nonsense, what you just said. He said, no, it's not nonsense. He made women. He should not have made women. So you see, there's so many crazy people in this world. But the idea is, look, in this life, rather than be a victim and a victimizer of sex, it's better to be a devotee and a person who helps others overcome those lusty desires and change those desires to love. Love of your family, love of friends, love of everyone. You see? So you have, on one hand, lust, and on the other hand, love. You see? So what's happened today is that love has been transformed into lust, and it's contaminating the whole society. But if love turned into lust, that means that lust could be turned back to love if we do the right thing. And what's the right thing? Well, the right thing is to have strong friendship and strong community of people who actually follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, right? So when you have a strong community of devotees that live like that, then that's like a great magnet that other people become attracted by. So when a person gives up illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and so forth, they also become kind and gentle and friendly and giving and humble, right? So now all of a sudden you build a society based on following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness or Sanatana Dharma, and people become good. And that's what other people are looking for also. They're looking for communities that are, actually good, with people that don't lie, don't cheat, that are don't gossip, and are sincere, and you can trust them. See, so once you're in a community of people that you can trust, everything changes in your life. You feel very happy. You feel secure. You feel that you're with people that don't lie, don't cheat, follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, and now you pass on those good qualities to your kids also. Everything becomes like Vaikuntha. And that's what we want. We want Vaikuntha. We don't want the Narak. We want Vaikuntha, a spiritual world today. And we can do that by following Prabhupada's instructions, regularly coming to the temple, having classes, festivals, and prasadam, and all these things to keep us on the right track of Sanatana Dharma. So the only thing that's going to destroy that, and destroy it very quickly, is illicit sex. That'll destroy everything very quickly in a person's life. You become addicted to it, and it's very hard to stop. But it's a very bad thing. But it's so that promiscuity is being practiced all over the place. So some people say, well, just like my friend, so it's God's fault. He made women. It's not God's fault. It's our fault because we're not following Krishna consciousness. We're not following the rules and regulations. So we have to think about it seriously. Haribol.
Maharaj, so if you have a friend like that who makes, gives
What's that?
If you have a friend like, person who says it's God's fault,
Yeah.
he created women, how should we deal with that person if he happens to be our friend? Should we stop engaging with this kind of person? How should we treat them?
Yeah, well, he was my friend. No, what do I mean? He would call me up sometimes 2-3 times a day because he was always arguing with his wife. And he would come and see me often. And I was always talking to him about Krishna consciousness. And he was always complaining about something, right? Eventually, he had a heart attack and died because he couldn't stop complaining. This is the problem, that as much as we can be nice to people, they come to us because we're being nice. They can trust us because we're not, trying to take advantage of them. And we're talking about good things all the time. He used to always complain about prasadam. He said, "Oh, there's too much ghee in the prasadam," And he would always complain about little things like that, right? But he was a very good friend of mine. And I was sorry to see him, die. But he died because he couldn't stop having sex. That was his problem. That's why he died. So, if you want to know what is the thing that contaminates people, it is definitely sex. Sex is a good thing for procreation. It's not supposed to be used for anything else. Now, most people today, they don't agree with that. And that's to their detriment. So if we understand what the problem is, then we can't, we don't have an excuse. Either you're going to follow it or not. You have to make that decision. So we should teach our kids, and we should be examples ourselves of giving up any bad habits. It could be intoxication, it could be philandering, it could be sex, it could be lying or whatever. We should give up all bad habits and live a very clean life and with a clean mind. See everyone as an eternal soul and not as a body. When you look at the body, and Prabhupada once told us, one night we were driving back to the temple, this was in Paris, with Prabhupada, and we lived in our temple was in a very expensive neighborhood. It was right next to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, a very expensive neighborhood. And unfortunately, there were a lot of prostitutes there, in the streets at night. And so we're driving, and we passed a place where there's a nightclub, and there was a long line of older men there waiting to get in. And Prabhupada saw that. He said, what are they doing? And we told him, I said, well, they're waiting to get in. He said, really? So why are they waiting to get in? Well, you have to pay to get in. He said, how much do they pay? And we said, well, I don't know for sure, but it's $50 to $100 just to get in. He says, see? They can have all the sex they want with their wife, but they want to get into the club to have sex with other women. He says, it's very, very bad. Very, very bad. So then at the same time, we're driving a little bit further, and there were prostitutes on the street, and at night, and many of them would wear sometimes these mink coats, and as you drive by, they would open up the coat, and they'd be almost naked. So it was a nice neighborhood, but unfortunately, there are, bad things happening. So the question is, what do you do with that? Well, what you do is you ignore it, because this is what destroys a person's life, to be exposed to that type of consciousness. And it causes a lot of problems. There's nothing better than to have a husband and wife that live together with full faith, and they maintain chastity in their life. What does that mean? That means, okay, they have children, but after having the children, then they take the responsibility of raising them properly so they become good persons. So these are all questions that you have to think about and decide, what to do. But if you decide to control the urges of the mind and the body, and especially sex, you will be very successful in life. And if you can't control it, well, you're still living, but you'll never be able to be the person that you want to be because of that weakness. So we have to think clearly, especially if we're involved in spiritual life, that sex is the one thing that can destroy your spiritual life very quickly when it's done for something other than procreation. Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Because it's very helpful, because we are most of the time surrounded by the atheists, and your example gives us the confidence to deal with them as well. Be more patient, be more merciful, maybe give a smile when they make a joke against God.
We don't want any jokes. We want love of God. We want it to be real, not joking. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.